Hello. Um, Welcome. Thanks so much for coming. I really appreciate it. My name's Josh Quick. I'm so grateful to be with Ednor up here. I'm glad to partner with him. We were just discussing briefly like how we got to Missoula initially. I thought Ednor's story was a lot more interesting. I hope he talks about it. It was very funny. Um, that's right, Kerouac. Jeez Louise. So my name's Josh Quick. I'm the illustrator and author of Quick Facts Books, which is a compendium of 100 plus facts about Montana, Glacier, Yellowstone. At this point, I have 4 books. So one's Montana. I have the sequel to Montana, which is more Montana Quick Facts. And then I have Yellowstone Quick Facts and Glacier Park Quick Facts. And so what are these things? They are... I pair 1 to 2 sentences with my own illustrations. And I wanted to kind of, in my presentation, I'm going to tell through those facts that I've put in my books, but I'm going to just tell you the origins of the books through those facts. And I hope it works, but we'll see how it goes. So just to give a little background on who I am in our community. Oh, look, that's everything I just said. These are the books. Who put this together? I did. So if you're wandering around the library, you'll see on the second floor a big mural in the water section. Water, forgive me, I can't think of the name of it right now, but it's pretty fun. It's a second floor on that end over there. It's a big mural, and it's of Montana, and it was about a watershed, and I was so grateful to the library and the nonprofits that helped budget and get us to put this thing up. It was put up during the pandemic, which was an interesting situation, but everybody showed up. So it was funny. It was like a belated, like, here's a mural, but it was like a year later. Right. Here's another thing you might see around town, which is the Big Dipper truck. If you guys ever get ice cream over there on Higgins, you'll see my work all over it. I've known Charlie and Barbie and Brian forever, so I've been in this community for a long time, and it came time to redo Cone Boy, which is the name of their truck, and so I created this big mural kind of just celebrating ice cream for the most part, and I'm really happy in that picture. So here's an example of one of my facts that you'll find in my book. So this is actually from my newest book. So I wasn't born in Montana. I was born in Council, Idaho, which is near McCall. So it's like 300 people. And this was in 77. And how I ended up there was my dad worked for the Forest Service, and he worked on fire towers. And my mom was a potter and a horsey lady. But not like fancy horses. Like she was like very rural, and there wasn't a lot of money. So I was born there. 77. This is from Yellowstone, Quick Facts. And like I said, my dad worked these fire towers. My dad, he's a baby boomer. We're talking about Kerouac. He was very into the whole back to lander movement. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that at all. Like, they were, to put it like kind of the best way I can put it is they were hippies that wanted to live in rural areas. They both grew up in urban environments, and they just moved to Idaho so that they could have, I guess, a place to themselves, which they did, And it was very community-minded back then, and a lot of people growing their own food, growing their own weed, that kind of stuff. My dad's a quiet guy, but I'd often ask him, like, what did you do in the forest? Because he would be in the forest for weeks alone. They'd give him his food for that amount of time working for the Forest Service, and he'd be just out there growing his hair out, smoking cigarettes, whatever dads do. But he said one of the things that he was into was checking out the local fish population, or fishing. So that's what he did on government money, which was good. He became a really good fisherman too. Still is. So this is a drawing I did for Montana Public Radio not too long ago. But how he discovered Missoula, he's on the fire tower, and one of the only signals he'd get was from Montana Public Radio. And so he's like, wow, like this pretty cool Prairie Home Companion, and so this was the inspiration for him coming out here and checking it out. And at that time, this was like 1981 or so. I'd already been born. My brother is 7 years older than me. My mom was ready for a move, and so they came out here and they checked it out, and they were into it. So that we all moved here to Missoula, which is pretty great. I really miss this peace sign. That was really nice back then. It's unfortunate. When we first moved here, we moved to 9 Mile. I'm sure you guys have been out to 9 Mile before. There still isn't much out there. My folks built their own cabin out there. We had a water well. We didn't have any electricity. We had an outhouse. Pretty exciting. But we didn't really know any better. We were from small town Idaho, so it was what it was. And my mom's actually a really good carpenter. Just have to say that. So one of my first memories growing up here was Mount St. Helens. And I remember my dad picking me up when the ash was coming down from the sky and taking me inside. And I guess part of the reason why I'm showing these facts is like people often ask me about my books and like how I choose facts. And I'm not just sitting there reading old newspapers and being like, that looks like a good fact. I really try to pull from my own experience. And I think that it just comes out better for me. So I think a lot about ashes. Like I said earlier, we were total hippie kids. We were feral. We were running in the forest. We had weird friends, and we would go to Weir and Jerry Johnson. Like we had like a really fantastic childhood. Like I look back on it wasn't perfect. We had weirdos around, and but we just enjoyed a lot of this, which was wonderful, and it was free. We did a lot of fishing. We also went to Yellowstone, and we went to Glacier. Glacier's closer, obviously. But it all worked out pretty good. At some point, my dad bought a raft, so that became our lives in the summer. We didn't really travel very far. There wasn't much in the budget for that, so we would just go fishing all the time. And one of my favorite memories is, seeing all the cars on the side of the water. And like, my dad was really innovative. He would bring snorkels, and we would examine the fish population with these snorkels. And sometimes we'd see these cars under the water, and it was just terrifying, We had a lot of dogs. Our first dog name was Gypsy. She was great. My mom told me a story that she'd pull me out of the horse corral so that I wouldn't get, stepped on by a horse, which I thought was a nice story from her. My brother is a carpenter, and so he really got into building skateboard ramps. And he was actually my mom, who had Troy when 1970 in San Diego. So my brother had this like surfing in his blood and skateboarding in his blood. And so he really got into skateboarding. So I grew up with a lot of that. And he actually built a half pipe in 9 Mile, which was completely insane. I bet people when they saw it were like, what is this? But it was really fun to grow up with that. I mentioned earlier that my mom was a ceramicist. And the great thing about that with my brother and I is art wasn't a dirty word in our household. So when you say things like, oh, I want to be an artist when I grow up, instead of the parent being like, just slow down, like you should be responsible, she was like, hell yeah, like be an artist, So we were really lucky that way. And I grew up with a lot of C.M. Russell stuff and Dolac stuff. Those were kind of the artists that were around. We eventually moved to Missoula, and I don't know, you guys remember Freddy's Feed and Read? You remember that place? It was awesome. And we lived on Beckwith, which is like a couple blocks from Freddy's Feed and Read. So I'd go in there, and I would look at their political satire, because that's where all the comic strips were. And as an artist, I was attracted to that initially. And Garth was there back in the day. That was pretty cool. And I would always sneak through, and I'd look at the dirty pictures and all the good stuff. But right away, I was attracted to drawing things in this way. And I learned all about it from Freddy's Feed and Read, which was pretty cool. And then I eventually started taking it seriously, and started doing graphic design, like commercial work, when I was 16. And that was it. I mean, that was it for me. So that's how I ended up in this. And I've been thinking a lot about these books that I've been making, and I thought maybe like I'd come up with the idea when I was in, I'm 45 now. I thought that I'd come up with it in my 30s or something like that, but looking back, I really, the earlier years I just showed you, I really think it came from that. And I think those were the origins of all of it. And growing up in Missoula, we had Montana history, and I remember being in those classes and being like, well, could I make something that a kid like me could really get into? As much as I enjoyed the written out versions of Lewis and Clark's journeys, give me a snippet, give me a simple fact, that I can take with me and talk to my friends about. We're like, why aren't we talking about football? But yeah. Yep. And that's my story. Thanks again, guys. So at the end of Ednor's talk, and thanks again, Ednor, for sharing this with me, I'll have Factatron out, and we'll do, basically how it works is you'll write down anything you can think of, and I'll draw it. Or wait, I'm sorry. Factatron will draw it, not me. Also, you can either ask Ednor questions directly, or if you want, you can slip it into Factatron, and we'll see if we can filter it out for Ednor. Yeah, if I can program it in time. So, thanks again, guys. Appreciate it.
So some of you may recognize me from playing music around town, but my music name is not Ednor Therriault. It's Tom Catmull. No, just kidding. It's Bob Wire. So under the name Bob Wire, I put out a Christmas album about 11 years ago with my writing partner, Chip Whitson. He and I wrote 11 original Christmas songs, and the album was called Off-White Christmas. And just the title supposedly announced the tone of this album, that, it's let's write about the things that people talk about Christmas, they complain about, but everybody celebrates everything else. Excuse me. So we needed somebody to illustrate the cover of this album, and I was aware of this guy named Josh Quick, illustrator in Missoula. His style was firmly established. Josh was clearly well known, and I had seen his work, and I thought, this is the perfect thing. So I approached him. I said, Josh, can you do a cover for this album? I'm not going to give him any kind of guidance or anything. So see what you can come up with for the title Off-White Christmas. And he listened to all the songs, and he came up with an illustration. And then I said, well, you're an artist like I am, so we're both used to being severely underpaid. What do you think about $100 for this $500 worth of work you've done? He said, sure. I know how it works. Excuse me. So that's how Josh and I met, and been kind of following each other's work over the years. So when John Samuel Brown put us together for this panel, I thought, what a perfect pairing. So he's doing a lot of what I do, travel around the state, find the interesting stuff, write about it, bring it back home, and present it in a way that makes everybody else want to travel around the state. That's kind of what my raison d'etre is, I guess. Excuse me. So I'm going to stand up even though my legs are so sore because I rode my bike for almost 4 miles yesterday. Thank you. Nothing? Okay. So this is my, my latest book, Big Sky, Big Parks, an exploration of Yellowstone and Glacier National Parks and all that Montana in between. So the idea for this book was hatched a few years ago when I wrote a story for Montana Magazine comparing the historic yellow buses of Glacier to the red jammer buses of, the yellow buses of Yellowstone and the red jammer buses of Glacier. Spoiler alert, they're the same bus. It's a 1934 white Model 706, I think. They're just different colors. So, of course, it was going to be a humor story. But in the research, I got to ride shotgun in both parks in one of these buses and listen to everything that the driver had to say about these tour guides and drivers in both parks are experts on biology, history, geology, the history of the park. It's incredible. And they have a little bit of stand-up comic in them, which makes them all very effective and just really entertaining. While they're, say, going to the Sun Road and like narrowly missing a bus, and they'll say, over there is a mountain that, and everybody's just hanging on to anyway, it was a lot of fun. And the story came out great, and I thought, these two parks, they're so different, and yet I love them both. What can I do to kind of tell some stories about the history that's happened within the parks, but also what was more important for me, it hit me that people that come out here to Montana to visit Glacier and Yellowstone, it's about a day's drive between the two parks, and people are usually on a beeline to get from one park to the other. And I thought, I need to tell them what is going on in Montana, what I call the Montana swath of western Montana. There's hundreds of itineraries you can make. Here's some things you can stop and see. Build a little extra time into your vacation so you can check out just all manner of stuff. So I pitched this sprawling book to my publisher. I've already published 7 books under them. Montana Curiosities was the first one. And I'm finding that I will never run out of stuff to write about in Montana. I love this state. Like Josh, just the more you dig in, the more questions you have, the more people you meet, the more history you learn that keeps pointing you out in different directions. So I talked to the publisher, said, look, I've got an idea for a book that talks about all the idiots, the dumb tourists in Yellowstone and the boneheads who go to Glacier and get lost and all the terrible things that rangers do. And she said, well, they're never going to sell that book inside the park. I said, hold up. It's called Double Dip. And she said, well, that's just stupid. So she said, go, come back with a better idea. So eventually I came up with the idea of 10 chapters each from Glacier, Yellowstone, and the Montana swath. We'll call it Big Sky, Big Parks. No bad behavior, just all kind of stuff that would make you want to learn more about the parks and spend more time in Montana between the parks. So I don't have a visual presentation, just a bunch of jibber jabber, so I hope that's okay. But one of the things that the title of this panel was the last best methods of getting around the last best place or something. I couldn't make heads or tails of that. It's like the last best guide. Okay, the first best guides to the last best place. Okay, I can go with that. I can work with that. So I can tell you some of my experiences that traveling around the state, sometimes 6,000 to 7,000 miles in a summer, researching one book, I found out ways that I can gather information quicker and go deeper into whatever territory I'm in. This kind of came about as I was researching my first book, Montana Curiosities, where I did travel a little over 6,000 miles in 4 months without leaving the state. And what I would do I found out, let's say I go to a place like Harleton, and I want to find out about something I've seen on the internet there. Like I saw there was a bar near Harleton where they have a fully mounted, full-body, two-headed calf in this bar. So, well, I got to go see that. I'll start with that. So I go find the Stockman Bar. Every small Montana town has a Stockman Bar. And that's where the stockmen go at the end of their day and have a beer. And so I would go to the bar about 5 o'clock, station myself at the end of the bar, have my notebook, have my road map, and I would sit there with the notebook open, just kind of having a beer, waiting for people to come in. The local ranchers and workers would come in and have their beer and start joshing around. Then they obviously, I'm the outsider. Hey, you one of those TV people? I said, no, I'm just up here, you know, working on writing a story. What are you writing about? Well, I heard there was a bar out here that has a two-headed calf. Two-headed calf? Steve here has a 9-legged lamb in his garage. I'm like, let's go see Steve's lamb. This worked like a charm everywhere I went. Then over the course of several books, it occurs to me that everybody you meet has just a fascinating story to tell, and they're just waiting for someone to ask them to tell it. I don't care if it's Sydney or Ekalaka or the Yak or Hamilton, anywhere you go throughout the state. And I did a book a couple of years ago called 7 Montanas, where my aim was to try to go to all the different parts of the state, find out what was the local story there, what's the economic engine, what's the big overarching conflict with environment right now. Is it, and what is the animal? Is it bears that are causing trouble? Is it wolves? Is it pallid sturgeon? What's the big deal in your part of the state? So that's what I got to do with 7 Montanas, was write about the 6 different regions. I had to come up with the 7th one because the publisher and I agreed that 7 is a better number than 6. So 6 Montanas, that's like, well, you got to come up with the 7th Montana. Okay. Andy Smetanka gave me the idea. Make that the conceptual Montana. I said, awesome. What concept? He said, hell, you're the writer. You'll come up with something. So the concept was the last chapter in the book where I asked somebody from every part of the state, what do you need to see 10 years from now to make Montana better or make Montana more complete according to the life that you're living here? And I got a different answer from everybody. But then what the book also achieved, I hope, was showing what we all share in common. Why do we all love Montana? Why do we choose to live our lives out here, raise our kids here? And there were a lot of things that everybody shared, a lot of the same values. Back then, even now, I think if you dig deep enough, you can find this in people. So that's what that book was about. But just traveling around the state, that's kind of the big thing I learned, was keep your antenna up and keep your ears open. And you're going to find stories anywhere you go. You can go out to an area with something in mind, come back with a completely different idea you had no clue existed because, well, you're living in Missoula and you never heard about the pallid sturgeon almost going extinct near Glendive because of the irrigation dam. Or if you're living in Baker, Montana, you may have never heard that on the Clark Fork there was a dam near Missoula that was failing, and if this dam burst, thousands of tons of toxic sludge would inundate the second biggest city in Montana and just be a catastrophic disaster. That's kind of redundant, actually. But that's what I hope to achieve with that book, and that's what I continue to do with my writing, especially Big Sky, Big Parks. It's like, I don't care how long you've lived here or what part of the state you live in or how much you've been to these 2 national parks. Hopefully there's something in here that you never even heard of, let alone know a little bit about. So I will be signing copies of this out front, like Josh will with his books. And, sir, you have a question?
Oh, no, not at all. But I didn't know about that research. It's really interesting.
Oh, yeah, that was... Oh, this was a pallid sturgeon. Yeah, it was up on the Yellowstone River. At the intake is the name of the area where the diversion dam is to irrigate the area at Glendive. And they were down to 90 individual fish in about 2006. So the Sierra Club and a couple of other environmental concerns slapped a lawsuit on the Lower Yellowstone Irrigation Project to take out this dam. The Sierra Club said not just that dam, but the other 6 dams that are on the Yellowstone.
Well, isn't the Yellowstone the country's longest undammed river?
No, not true. There are 7 dams on the Yellowstone. They're all irrigation dams, so they're barely under the water. But the sturgeon they're not trout. They're not athletic and not particularly good looking. But they couldn't jump over this dam to get to their spawning grounds, so they're down to 90 fish. And this lawsuit created the possibility of having this dam taken out, the irrigation system being ruined, and the entire area, some 3,500 families, would revert back to the Badlands, and their way of life would be ruined. So this went through the court for about 3 years. Meanwhile, the people who make their living there said, well, can't we just dig a channel around the dam that the fish can swim around it and get up that way? Oh, no. This has to go through the courts and the lawsuits and, federal Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And finally, a judge in Great Falls said, you know what? You know what they need to do is build a channel around the dam, and then the fish will. So that was the thing. They won the lawsuit, and I happened to be up there looking for something to write about the Bakken that maybe hasn't been written yet. But here's a whole new story. I had no clue that this entire region was on the precipice of being ruined by this conflict. But they found a way to work it out so that the fish won, the farmers won, everybody's happy. And this was news to a lot of people in Missoula. We tend to be a little smug here in western Montana with all our mountains and rivers and lakes and forests and whatnot. So this is something I learned through friends from that area, through writing and researching about eastern Montana. It's like you look at a map and it's like, well, that's all flat and unpopulated. There's nothing out there. It couldn't be further from the truth. But I can't convince you of that with photos and flowery stories. I encourage you to go out there yourself and just feel the beauty and the incredible power that this part of the state has. Southeast Montana, northeast Montana, and all through the central Montana. The geology is incredible. And just the people are really very cool. And if you come to town, you come into Stockman's Bar and you got number 4 license plates and you got an earring and you sit up at the bar, nobody's going to kick your ass. These are all kind of stereotypes that, okay, nobody's going to kick your ass until later. But that's kind of my way of getting around the state is it starts with the people. Everywhere you go, there's a lot to fawn over and fall in love with, but it all goes down to the people who live there. So I encourage you to travel around and just be willing to start a conversation or engage in a conversation, and don't travel around in a bubble, and then come back with all these pictures of land and no stories of people. But I guess at this point, if you have a couple questions for me, I think I'm going to let Josh set up the information Toronto-matic. I'm sorry. That's good. Sorry. It's version 2.0, I'm told. And then we'll take a few questions.
A question for both of you guys. You're both upbeat, funny, nice,
good looking,
and you have antenna for all of that stuff out there, like you guys. Not to be a downer, but things are changing in Montana. And there's, the last 5 years, there's a lot of, all of us who love Montana and have been here a long time, there's darkness out here.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you just sort of deal with that when you're, maybe even deal with that is not the right expression for it, but what's your take on what's going on with the state, with its people, with newcomers? What's your take on what you guys are seeing and feeling and hearing?
You want to take that one?
You want to think about it?
Yeah, I need to think about that.
That's a really good question. Thank you. I want to hear more from you, though, before we answer it. Like, can you give me an example of, obviously the pandemic brought a lot of folks from out of town. Are you speaking to something more specifically?
I sort of overlap a little bit. You guys, I've over the years worked with Montana Public Radio. I work with Montana PBS. I do doc films. I'm out there doing stuff. I'll go to a specific area, which I've the flathead is changing. I mean, number one is really, really crowded. Number two, I'm not going to mention his name, but there's a beloved person who ran the public radio, public television station for years, and I had, after one of these sessions with him yesterday, we sat down, and he's a Montana, he's been here his whole life. He's really sad by the kind of meanness that is out there now.
The greed.
The grade of it?
Greed.
Greed. Oh, yeah.
The money is
Yeah,
the number
yeah,
one thing now.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah. So it's, for all of us who love this state, I mean, it's like this dark wave has hit us. And you guys are so up, you are what we all love about you. So, and I know it's a tough one to.
Yeah. I can't wait for Ednor's answer. So my dad grew up in Texas, and my mom grew up in San Diego. And they moved to Idaho in the 70s, and then they moved over here, obviously, in 81. And so I do talk to them about what they've seen, the changes, and it's not just Montana, you know, it's everywhere. There's a huge change. I'm guilty of this too, like so many people on their phones, driving. We don't even have like that law in our state where, you know, people aren't going to get pulled over for looking at their phones while they're driving. There's so many changes happening all at once. And I do see that, the meanness that you're talking about. It's really sad. And I guess for me, I don't freak out too, and you didn't say this, so I'm sorry, but like my first thought is the outsiders that are bringing these elements in. But because of my parents moving from other places, I try to line that up a little bit because they were trying to get away from the madness that was there during the 60s and 70s. And I'm thinking that some of these folks are trying to get away from the madness that they're experiencing, but they're bringing some of it with them too. And that's really unfortunate. And I don't know how to deal with that. It is hard for me. And I also see a lot of political changes too. And, but I am grateful that Montana Public Radio is still around and PBS is still around. They didn't destroy those things. I just hope people come to their senses a little bit and not, I mean, we don't need to be crabs in a bucket. There's plenty of space for us. It's just, how do you you know, I don't have any answers obviously, but I think my overall answer though, it's a bummer. And I hope they can work it out, and I hope I don't get run over during it. So.
That is a great question, and I think we're tap dancing around a little bit around the fact that the bad guys are winning right now. That's what it feels like. And I love this state, like all of us do, so much that I don't want to see, even as a relative latecomer to Montana, I moved here in '93, I don't want to see this sold off to the highest bidder, although we're in the process of that with natural resources and access and all that. But rather than take on the tactics of the bad guys and fight them down there on their level, I think what we try to do is we take the positives and we push it forward. We're going to keep going forward and share our love of Montana. And that's how we're going to hopefully outlast these short-sighted concerns that come in and want to just pillage the resources and take their checks and go back to wherever they came from. They certainly aren't from here because there are Montana values that drew a lot of people for generations into this state. And those are the people that are getting squeezed out right now because you can't compete with money. You know, so we're finding other ways to do it, whether it's your one-on-one interactions with people everywhere you go. That's what I try to do. It's not, I'm not like, you know, you get a lot of some suspicion here and there if you go, say, I went up to Havre when I was working on 7 Montanas. I have several friends here in Missoula. When they learned I was writing a book about Montana, they said, why don't you go up to Havre and write about the racism up there? I hadn't really heard much about that, but then I started looking into it, and Havre, for some reason, had this nationwide reputation for being the most racist town in Montana, and I had been there several times. We've been through Havre. We loved Havre. What is the problem here? So I went up there, talked to people on the res, talked to people on the, in town, white people, Indians. I was interviewing a woman, an Indian woman who owns a store in Havre where she sells Indian artwork from several different tribes. This was, I want to say, 2017. And I can tell you that if you all think back to what time that was, the tables turned in 2016. She said, it's not people who came in, it's suddenly we have a racist in charge of the country, so everybody else who's a racist or a homophobe or a bigot feels like they can come out of the woodwork now. One of ours is in charge. She said, this Indian woman told me that trucks immediately were going up and down the main road, the main drag in Havre, flying big rebel flags, Nazi flags, and it's like suddenly, it's not like they just arrived. They've been here all along. But now they feel like they can express themselves in public. And just running into that kind of thing, what can you do? You need to keep doing what is the right thing. Keep spreading the positive message. And, raise your kids to understand that this is an aberration. We are not these people. This is not what Montana is about. We have to outlast this cycle and try to regain the values that really made this state as great as it is. And I feel like that's kind of, I've become like an advocate fighting that fight to show people what's so great about Montana, looking past politics to the human part of it. And even it's an uphill battle, but it's what we try to do. Oh, thanks. Yeah, Philip?
On the theory that roughly 15 to 20% of us are sons of bitches. Latent sons of bitches.
Yeah.
And that lady had it right. They got a voice. And it's like an orchestra bringing out something from the orchestra. Trump brought that out, gave them permission. I know there's KKK in Havre. I had a woman come up to me one time during one of my presentations and said, there's KKK in Havre. She was from Havre. And there was that incident here some years ago where somebody was putting out pamphlets. Right. And I said, well, why didn't you bring this up during the question and answer? And she said, because I'm afraid.
Yeah, that is a big element of it.
And so what we need, Trump came out and said, this is the world. Gave them permission. And you're exactly right. It needs to be countered with people saying, and leaders saying, this is the world. This is the world, and you don't have permission.
That's the thing. I think it's important not to go down in the mud and wrestle with them. We got to kind of keep on the high road as much as we can. But you're fighting against things like I did a presentation in Malta I think it was Malta at the museum there. And the woman who ran the museum was wonderful, and she was very helpful and knowledgeable and just runs one of the best museums in Montana. And before I was leaving, she said, well, where are you going now? And I said, well, I'm coming from Havre, and I'm going on to, there was a Glasgow, I think. And I did a program in Havre talking about the racism that's, I see up here. And she says, what, on the High Line? There's no racism up here. Where do you get that? It's like, oh my God, get out of town once in a while. Read a paper. It's like people just want to exist in their own bubble and believe that these things don't happen. But, it's like, as a white male, it's like, well, there's no way I'm going to really understand innately any kind of oppression or discrimination. So all I can do as a white male is shut the hell up and listen and learn, and then try to get with the program. you know, try to just learn, like I say. But yeah, it's a tough thing. Like you said, there's no easy answers. So we have to just keep making art and try to celebrate the things that are great.
Agreed. Yep. Sure. Other questions?
How about a question for the
Factotron?
Factotron?
All right, I'm gonna turn on Factotron, so if you guys are feeling it, okay, no pressure. Write down a person, a thing, whatever you can think of, and Factotron will output it with the drawing. However, if you have like a question, we'll filter it and we'll put it Ednor's way. Okay? So there's index cards up here, there's pens up here. You just write it down and slip them in.
Do you want me to pass these out?
Yeah. No. Or I think actually, why don't you guys swap up here and we'll just do one at a time. Because he could overheat.
What can you put in?
Good. If you guys, yeah.
What can you put in?
You can put in, so I have an index card.
Yeah.
You just write something on it, and I'll put a visualization of whatever that is.
Yeah, but you said not a question.
You can put a question in there too if you want to. We'll see what happens.
All right. Audience member with guts.
Top one?
Yep.
She's a plant.
So how long have you guys been married?
I actually heard a funny story about Ronald Reagan last night. I guess when he was shot in the heart, he was in the hospital, and a nurse was holding his hand, and he was going in and out of consciousness. He woke up at some point, looked at her, and said, "Does Nancy know about us?" I thought that was pretty funny. True story.
He was a funny guy.
All right, Factotron almost done.
How many people in this room here were born in Montana?
That's not 47%. Our
That's one of the
family
things
is close to that though.
I
Our
feel-
family.
That's true.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm really full of aliens. What's that?
Yeah, we are.
Nice. I said Jews in Montana because I am now a Jew in Montana and I'm a newcomer. Be nice to me.
Welcome to Montana.
Our first temple was in Helena. It's still there. It was made into a library.
Lahaina.
Yeah, anybody else? Yes. Jump in there.
So I know some of you know me, but nobody's asked me where the hell did that name come from, Ednor? What is that about?
Yeah, where the hell did that do?
Turns out my parents were really into boggle.
Yeah, that's not true. Thank you. Appreciate it.
How will we know if yours is
Whichever one comes up, I think you'll be able to guess which one's mine.
Oh.
What I put.
This Factotron version 2 is a lot quieter than the prototype. Yeah, a lot of grinding and popping. It's weird.
Factotron can't project his answers up on the screen. He's too primitive.
It's going to be version 3.0.
I just don't want you guys running about the technology and giving it. There we go. Now we're talking. You guys are a little bit older than my usual Factotron customers, so pardon the output. You might be thinking to yourself, what is this all about?
Charles, there must be something you're dying to know about appeals. Not so much. Could it be possible I'm overestimating my appeal?
Oh, this is a good question. Factotron can't really compete with this one. He'll attempt to make the implementation of it, but I think you should answer it. How many bridges across the Clark Fork does Missoula need?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for not saying the Clark Fork River. That's not the name of it. Let's see. Really, I guess just one between the brewery and my house? I don't know. That's a good question. Well, how many are there now? Aren't there like three? Three main ones. We might need a couple more if more people move in. And I think Reserve Street is going to have to go to 14 lanes at some point. I don't know. It's you live here in Missoula for a while, and you kind of figure out. Well, it used to be what's the busiest part of the day that you avoid Reserve, or that you avoid Madison Street Bridge, or when are the lights going what direction on Higgins? Are they lined up the right way for me to get downtown? But now it's just all day, every day. It's busy everywhere. So maybe, I don't know. If we build another bridge, it'll be ready in about 5 years, and by then we'll need 6 more bridges. So I don't know. Maybe Factotron would have been better at this one.
No, he created a visualization.
Oh, he's made a visualization. Okay, nice. Well, who put that question in? He's got your visualization up here. Yeah.
I know you had a Factotron. Want a Factotron up?
It's just a solid bridge over there.
I want
Yeah, jump in there. Just doing an animal for this one. Ednor, what's your favorite animal?
Hey, while Factotron's working, what is the funniest, most fun place in Montana for you guys? Factotron can answer it and too.
Funniest and most fun.
Or most fun. Aside from Missoula, they're on the fun part.
Okay, I think I never really thought of it in terms of funniest. I guess to me, Butte would be, it's easily the most interesting, and I tend to find humor in almost everything, and Butte is really an endless supply of that. Not necessarily most fun unless you're really kind of a history geek. Bozeman used to be fun.
Hot springs, seriously.
Hot Springs. Oh my God, how did I not think about Hot Springs? Oh Lord, I'm working on a song called Hot Springs Weekend, and it's going to have a lot of locals in it. And, yeah, Hot Springs, far and away. Thank you for that.
I've really got, there's 2 places that I've really done. Red Lodge is one of them. That's a kind of a strange place. My girlfriend's a potter, so I've been learning a lot about pottery. They have amazing, like if you guys like forms, it's a great place to go. It's phenomenal. They have a huge like a potter compound out there where famous potters come out and they show you their work, how to do things. I'm not a potter, but I really enjoyed that about it.
Where did you say?
Red Lodge. It's really, really beautiful town. Weird too because there's so much. People have found out about it, so there's all these crappy, like drawn-up buildings. It's not good.
And then Haunted Hotel.
Does it?
Yeah.
Oh, I'd love to go. I would. What's the name of that famous ghost guy that's ridiculous in his hospitals? Anyways, I would love to do a ghost show with you sometime. I know that'd be really fun. Get to scare each other. But the other place is Helena. I never cared about Helena growing up, but I've been going there a lot for my books, and I love it there. I think it's a great place. I think it's weird and it's kind of conservative, and there's really no main interstate, but it's a really fun place. I love the hiking around here. How about you? What do you like? I'm just curious.
As the years go by and as the west side gets more credit, I mean, the east side in general.
Yeah.
Especially the front. I agree with you about Helena. I mean, the Rocky Mountain front is extraordinary.
Yeah, Shoto and all that. Augusta, yeah. Yeah.
What's amazing is that each part of Montana has a different landscape.
Right.
When you travel to the totally different landscape, totally different people, which makes Montana.
Yeah. I don't think the eastern part of Montana is ever going to fill up. I could be wrong, but we can discover more oil. And I'm sure it will. But yeah.
Well, it is because of the path.
Right.
I send people over there.
You like go over there?
Oh, yeah. You can't find the house, you come on down.
Yeah. Where are you from originally? Oregon. Okay. And Oregon's filled up. What's that?
I've been here since '82.
82. So you were one.
And my son, who's 50 now, says to me a lot of Montana memories.
Yeah.
He'd love to come back here. And I go, we're booming, you gotta come now.
Yeah. Get in here now, for sure. Oh, another Factotron question that could be visualized, but it's got to go to you, Ednor. Okay. Tell me about the yak. Where is it? And what is it known for?
Oh, where's Richard Fifield when we need him? Oh my God. The yak is about as far northwest as you can get in the state without stepping over to Canada. It's probably the most sizable town up there is Troy, which is, this is a fun fact, it's right around there is the lowest point in the state in elevation. And then 50 miles north of that, you go up through the wilderness and there's the yak. I've never been to the yak. I've been about halfway up there looking for an address or something. I had to turn around. It's like, did they say yak or attack? But yeah, I know that Dirty Shane is up there, and that's the famous bar. And
Dirty Shane?
yeah, it's the one bar. I just think that, yeah, it's like it's the most remote outpost for people who just can't stand to live in a metropolis of 27 people. They go up to the yak to get away from the crowds. But it's, yeah, deep. You can, there is a little, like a little town there. But the town might be like 3 buildings. And one of them is the Dirty Shane. So people and bikers, all kinds of people will make the trip up there just to overrun this bar. And I don't really know a lot about it. I mean, Rick Bass is
Rick Bass?
yeah. I'm going to send this on to Rick Bass. If we could hook up to Rick Bass.
Factotron made a visualization.
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
And one last thing, I know we're running out of time, but you guys really are the kind of guys who make this place a better place.
Any other Factotron questions? Or just regular questions too?
I have a question. Best meal you had, or like most memorable in your travels?
I went to the Mint, which is in Belgrade. Amazing. What's that Canadian dish? It's cheese curds and fantastic. Blew my mind. Had a great time. Hold on, I got one more. I love food so much. Blackbird Bozeman. Their pizza's phenomenal. Way too pricey. Oh, and the gas station outside of Billings is really good nachos. I can't think of the name of it. It was a late night.
Sometimes it's when you have a meal makes it the best meal.
I stayed at a red line outside of Billings, and it was weird, man. But we had fun. That gas station was pleasant.
Yeah, that's fine.
Ednor, you think what is it? What is your?
Well, I'm a big fan of Weissenberger. You know, anywhere I get a good, authentic, locally sourced Weissenberger. I can tell you the worst one I ever had was the first one I had. I was playing a gig with my band in the late 90s, and we played at the Elks Lodge in Gardner, Montana. So the whole band went over there and stayed. I can't remember where we stayed, but we were looking around for where to have our dinner. And here's a 2-story red neon sign that says EAT. It's like, well, I guess we gotta go there. So I said, look, they have a buffalo burger on the menu. I had just, I hadn't been in town more than like 5 years. It's like, I gotta try this. And so the one they brought me was like a hockey puck that had been run over with a steamroller. And it was scalding lava hot on the outside and then ice frozen in the middle and had no taste. It was gray. It was like, I should have got something better like a McDonald's burger or something. Then that taught me the lesson that the bigger the sign, the worse the food. But the best Weissenberger I had was in Darby. It was in Darby. And I think I was playing at the brewery down there, and we had breakfast in the morning at I think it was called the Montana, it was the Parkside Cafe. It's now closed. Sorry. It's across the street from, it's right on Main Street. It's a big kind of family style cafe. You don't expect much. But actually I think we had dinner there. So I ordered, give me this, the big kahuna, or whatever they're calling this buffalo burger. And it said on the menu like 2/3 of a pound, maybe. Like a normal, regular hamburger should be 1/3 of a pound. They brought me this thing that was probably this tall, with huckleberry sauces stacked up with everything you ever heard of being on a burger. But then the meat was the biggest thing. It was like almost like a football in those things. And it took me 3 sessions to put this thing away, 3 different meals. But it was great. It was hand formed. It was bison from the Bitterroot Valley. And then later that year, the place closed down. And, I'm not ashamed to say I shed a few tears.
Do you have a suggestion for us for a good food place?
So I want to say it's called it's either the Butterfly or the Dragonfly in Anaconda.
Okay.
Right across from like their fancy like brewery. You walk in and it looks like a cafeteria, like some nondescript, like hardly any decoration. Best food I've ever had. I went with a small group of people. We got a Reuben sandwich. We got the brisket. We got like another kind of sandwich. We kind of did a sample of the menu, and it was. I still think about it. And that was about a year and a half ago. Still open. And they make everything in-house. They have like a bakery part, so I had some really great, like 5 different cupcakes and some cookies. Really good. I want to say it's called Butterfly Cafe.
I have one more tip about how to find great Mexican food in Montana. We stumbled across this in Red Lodge, a place called La Palma.
La Palma?
Yeah, they've since moved, but they're still there. A little tiny place.
Yeah, I need that.
And when you walk into a place, I just 2 days ago, I ate at the Blue Taco Bus in Bozeman. And if they have a menu that's like half the size of the screen, it's like 30 dishes, and there's a picture of each dish and a number.
Yeah.
And you got to know what you're looking at. The food is going to kill. I don't care if it's on a styrofoam plate with a plastic fork. It's authentic Mexican. That's the key, is that illustrated menu.
Yeah.
With numbers, so I would
Yeah.
number 1.
It does tell you what it is, like chili relleno.
Best Mexican restaurant in Montana is now in
Okay.
Oh,
Mexico's into it.
okay.
Mexico, okay.
It's all people who have been coming there seasonally, during the harvest, staying there.
I think I see our next book kind of falling into place.
Mexican restaurants in Montana.
Yeah,
Good shrimp book. You're gonna like it.
Are you going around to movies at once, like the stampedes and different rodeos and stuff where you can run? Does some of the festivals and bigger celebrations around?
I haven't really gone to these things very much to write about them. I've gone to them like anybody else from Montana to experience this.
Right.
The slab legs, the wild.
Oh, there was, yeah, an event in Ennis. They called it Hunter's Feed. It happens in early October after the summer season has wound down. Fly fishermen have gone home. All the local people, the hunters, break out all the game meat from their freezer, and they have a competition to see who can make the best dish. So on a Saturday morning, they have all these crock pots lined up on car tables up and down Main Street.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody has their dish, and then it's a competition to see who's going to get the most votes. So I happened to be coming through town. I thought, well, I don't normally eat meat that does not come without a Safeway wrapper, and I'm not a hunter. But it's like I got to try this stuff if I'm going to write about it. So I tried elk, bear, mountain sheep, moose, all these game birds, and I never would have eaten. But the best one I had was this. They give you a little plastic cup. They put a spoonful in, and that's your sample. And so this was. It looked like sausage gravy. And the sign on the crock pot said "Boo Boo Biscuits and Gravy." This is bear meat. Yeah, it's bear meat. So I tried a couple bites and like, this is great. This is so. I've never had. Look? I know you don't want to share your recipe, your secret recipe. What's the one ingredient that makes this so good? And she looked around and she said, "It's probably the pork sausage." Okay. Big mystery solved there. But yeah, these little festivals like that. I'm more attracted to the ones that are a little bit more obscure.
You just eat your way across the state.
I'm working on it.
Okay.
The place is called Firefly in there.
Firefly. Okay. I'll send a message. I like Anaconda's great. You can go there, and then Fairmont's like right there. Really great.
Fairmont's kind
Yeah, I know. And they stopped doing it where you can just pop in.
of, no,
Like,
you have to stay the night.
Yeah.
Oh, is that right?
Which is a total bummer.
Yeah.
You're totally right. But the water is hot.
Yeah, the
which
water's great.
I appreciate.
Yeah, nobody goes there for the food, oddly.
No, I don't think it's so good. No.
Well, you want to drive to the Butte where all the good restaurants are. That's how bad the food is in there.
Yeah. I actually want to say too, I said Helena earlier, their food is terrible. I don't know what's going on over there. We need to figure that out.
Oh, I was just staying with Brad Tyre and Eden Atwood. I did a reading there the other night.
Yeah.
They invited me to stay at their house. They had just bought a house there. And we were kind of talking about the housing markets, how they've all gone nuts. And Brad's like, yeah, Helena's like that too.
Really?
But the restaurants all still suck. It's like there's got to be some benefit of paying too much for a house. And that's not happening here. The pickled eggs at Chester's Bar are good to know. My goodness.
Yeah. That actually, the new, like, it's like a dram shop over in Helena called Brothers, which is owned by the governor or Bullock, his brother. Really nice. It's a nice place. If you want to hear. Yeah, it's downtown. Yeah. It's good. Yep. It's a good place to go. And Vans Marketplace is stuck in 1995, so if you guys want to take time machine, go there. The lighting is the same.
I just love learning new stuff yourself.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
I'm like Josh, I appreciate you guys taking the time to come out. I think everybody's
Thank you, guys.
probably worn out by now.
Hungry.
The book festival.
Now we're hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you guys for joining.
Yeah.